To write a term paper requires a special mindset. It requires your commitment to your integrity, to your honesty. And if you think that you will just cut and paste some excerpts or passages or some quotations from different sources and prepare a term paper and submit it to your supervisor, then I think it will be accused of plagiarism or theft or stealing of information or ideas of other people. So a term paper should be original. You may borrow the ideas from different writers. You may borrow quotations from different sources. But you must give credit to those writers. If you do not credit them, or if you declare that the materials that you have incorporated into your term paper are yours, then that is dishonesty. And if this happens, or if the examiner finds this thing in your term paper, then I think you will not be given a satisfactory grade by your supervisor. So if you want to obtain a good score in this term paper, then you have to be original in your approach to your topic, in your search for the materials, or in your venture for developing a discourse. Your term paper is your discourse, remember this. And your discourse must be yours. If your discourse goes with the other person's discourse, then your discourse is not an original discourse. And if your discourse is not original, then it will not be given the credit of a researcher. A researcher's discourse must be original. So originality is the first and foremost consideration regarding the authenticity of a term paper. Now, what is a term paper? I have defined term paper here. A term paper is a research paper. So as I have already told you, a term paper is not an assignment, remember this. In the case of assignment, the examiners do not bother about originality or authenticity. In your assignment, you may accumulate different ideas, different data, or different information from different sources. And it will go to a conclusion. It will reach a conclusion. But a term paper is not a sort of assignment that you wrote while you were a student of 11th class or 12th class. Okay. But while you are a student of graduation level or post-graduation level, then your term paper or your research paper must have originality. You must not cut and paste information from different sources and produce a hybridized term paper. So a term paper is a research paper, and a research paper must have originality or authenticity. So a term paper is a research paper written by students over an academic term, accounting for a large part of a grade. Merriam-Webster defines it as a major written assignment in a school or college course representative of a student's achievement during a term. Term papers are generally intended to describe an event or concept or argue a point. It's a written original work. So mark this very phrase, original work. So your term paper must be an original work, discussing a topic in detail. So you should have a topic. Now, how will you select your topic? Your topic may be selected by your supervisor, or you may decide your own topic. If you can decide your own topic, that would be better. So how can you choose your topic? At first, you have to make an extensive study of your textbook or a particular field that you have chosen as your course of study. So you have to read extensively with an inquisitive mind. You should have a target for a new thing or new finding. So while with this very intention or motive, you will go through the particular course of study, then in course of time, you must come out with a topic. You must define a topic. So on that very particular topic, you will develop your term paper. So usually, a term paper is usually written on a particular topic in detail, and usually several typed pages in length, and is often due at the end of a semester. Actually, National University has prescribed this particular course, that is term paper, this very particular course, for you with a view to teaching you how to write a research paper. And this very particular skill will also help you pursue the higher studies. If you decide that you will pursue MPhil or PhD, then this particular skill will help you to produce a term paper. So a term paper is very, very important because it will help you understand your skill, your efficiency, and it will also teach you some basic rules of writing a research paper. Now, what are the specialties of a term paper? A term paper requires academic integrity. That is, you should have academic integrity. Integrity means honesty. You should stick to your labor. You should stick to your commitment to discovery of a new idea, of a new discourse. And if you stick to this principle, that will help you maintain originality of your term paper. So originality is very, very important. Okay. So originality is very important. Then an original topic. So the topic should be original. If you work on a very common topic, or the topic which is frequently used by many writers or researchers, that may lead you to the risk of losing your originality. So your topic should be original. Now, what would be your topic? You may question, sir, how can I choose my topic, or how can I select a new topic? Actually, anything under the sun may be your topic. Anything under the sun may be your topic. So while you are exploring a text, you should just keep a watchful eye upon the things that you are reading. Or your approach to the text should be critical. If your approach to the text is critical, then I think it's not difficult for you to find out a new topic. Okay. Then another important thing that you have to consider while writing a term paper, that is the presentation of discursive ideas. The ideas that you will present should be fortified with arguments. You have to present arguments and defend your ideas. If you put only ideas without arguments, then your ideas will not be accepted. Actually, you have to establish what you want to say. Suppose you say that Shakespeare is a romantic dramatist. All right. You may be right, or you may not be right. If you can prove it with arguments, then you are right. But if you call Shakespeare a romantic dramatist, but you do not offer sufficient arguments in favor of what you say, then you are not right. This is called discursive presentation of ideas. That is, you have to present your ideas discursively. Okay. Or suppose you quote a line, or you quote a passage, or you quote some lines from a poem in your research paper or in your term paper. All right, you have the right to quote from different sources. But the thing that you have to do is to interpret that very quotation. If you can't interpret, then your quotation may not be accepted by your supervisor, and your quotation may seem to be irrelevant to what you want to say. It will lose its validity. So while you quote from a source, you have to interpret it sufficiently and convince your supervisor or examiner that this quotation is relevant to what you want to say. This is very, very important. Okay. Then citing of sources. While you quote from a source, suppose you are writing a term paper on Hamlet's madness. Okay. Suppose Hamlet's madness is your topic of your term paper, and you are examining this particular topic from existential perspective, or from archaeological perspective, or from Marxist perspective. Then what will you do? You have to quote from different sources. You have to borrow some quotations or excerpts of passages from different sources. All right. So why do you quote from different sources? To strengthen your idea, or to strengthen what you want to say. But your quotation will not be accepted unless and until you credit the writers of those quotations. So citing is very important. citing is essential for the honesty, for the originality of a term paper. You have to cite or mention the sources. Now, how will you cite? You cannot cite in the way whatever you like. You have to cite following the format prescribed by Modern Language Association, or MLA, or APA. MLA is one of the most popular formats, and this format is immensely preferred by the researchers. Okay. So citing of sources is very important to make your term paper authentic, original, and to save yourself from the charge of plagiarism or from the charge of theft. Okay. Then you can use footnotes. Suppose you have written or you have mentioned a particular term that requires interpretation. And if you put that interpretation into your body of the text, it may break the flow of ideas, or it may break the concentration of the reader. Then what will you do? You have to give the footnote. Just at the bottom of the page, you have to write the footnotes. That will also help you save yourself from the charge of vagueness or from the chance of becoming inscrutable to the readers. So footnotes are very essential. It's a very essential part of your term paper. Or you may also use the endnotes. Endnotes are usually incorporated at the end of a section or at the end of a chapter or at the end of the term paper or thesis paper. You have to mention the endnotes. Okay. And last of all, bibliography. You know, Bible means book. So bibliography means the list of the books. The list of the books. That is the books that you use while writing your term paper. Those books should be enlisted in a list at the end of your section or at the end of your chapter or at the end of your term paper. So bibliography will help you save yourself from the charge of becoming unauthentic or from the charge of exercising or practicing plagiarism. You must give credit to the writers from whom you have borrowed ideas. That will not deteriorate the value of your research. That will rather fortify your research work with authenticity. So at the end of your term paper, you should produce a list of the books or list of the journals, list of the articles, and the other sources that you have got in the printed form or in the form of soft copy, or you may collect the materials from a website, or you may collect the materials from a journals or from an articles or from a book. So you have to mention all these things. You have to mention the information regarding the publishers. regarding the places of publications, regarding the year of publications, and you have to give information about the authors. So all these things should be put together in the list of the works or the books at the end of your chapter or at the end of your term paper. And we call this list of books or list of sources is we call it bibliography. All right. And how will you produce this list? You have to produce this bibliography in accordance with the format prescribed by Modern Language Association, that is MLA. And I request you now to purchase a book from Friends Book Corner or from other bookstores. MLA Handbook of Research Writing. Okay, and you have to collect the 8th edition of this book. 8th edition. 8th edition was published in 2016, and this is the latest edition. And you may collect this book. And that very book will give you guideline how to produce a term paper or how to write a term paper. Now, one very particular term that I have mentioned repeatedly, plagiarism. Now, what is it? What things are to be avoided in a term paper? So the first thing that you have to avoid is copying or pasting from different sources without giving credit to that very source or to the author of that source. You may borrow information that I have already told you. You may borrow quotation from different sources, but you must credit the author. You have to cite the source from which you have borrowed your ideas, borrowed the quotations. If you do not do that, if you just attempt to produce quotations and declare that it is yours or you have produced it from by yourself, then it will be charged with theft, and which is a serious accusation or allegation. So plagiarism is a very important, or it's a very significant term that you must keep in your mind, and it's a crime that you must avoid. It's a crime and you must avoid it. Then another important thing that you have to avoid while writing a term paper, you must avoid the overlapping of arguments. You must not repeat your ideas. You have to produce or generate ideas, and you have to incorporate these ideas into the body of your term paper. And these ideas must generate new thoughts. These ideas will also provoke new ideas or new approach or new attitudes. If you inculcate the same thing again and again, that will produce an atmosphere of boringness, and that will tell upon your research paper. So overlapping of arguments is to be avoided. If you do not, or if you cannot avoid it, it will tell upon your term paper. Then hypothetical input of ideas. You must not concoct anything. You don't have any chance of concoction. If you fabricate stories, or if you fabricate something that your examiners do not accept, then your research paper or your term paper will suffer. So there is no chance of producing hypothetical ideas in your term paper. In your term paper, all your ideas should be fortified with arguments, will be fortified with critical approaches or critical discussions. You must not say anything playfully. You must not say anything without any base. Okay. Then another thing that you have to, or that you must avoid, is the stealing or copy paste of sentences or passages. I have already told you that you have the right to borrow ideas from different sources. But as soon as you borrow ideas or quotations, you must mention or you must cite the sources. You have to acknowledge your debt to the authors. If you do not acknowledge your debt to the authors, or if you do not cite the sources, you will be charged with stealing or theft. And you know that many students borrow ideas from different websites. And you know that nowadays research papers are sold, and you can purchase a research paper or various research papers from your market. And many students who are not industrious or who are not dedicated to their work, or who do not even try to understand the implication of the term, that is a researcher, try to copy paste different paragraphs or passages from different sources and produce a term paper. I think it's a crime, and you have to avoid this crime. Then the next thing that you must avoid is the passive expression. The passive expression. So whatever you want to say must be said directly. If you produce your ideas in a roundabout way, that will tell upon the lucidity of your research paper. So you must be straightforward. A research paper must not be rhetorical. Remember this. You are not a poet while you are writing a research paper. You are a researcher. So the ideas that you will produce in your research paper must be straightforward. You have to avoid ambiguity. You have to avoid confusion. You must not be rhetorical. You are not a rhetorician while you are writing a research paper. Your ideas should be striking. Your ideas should be straightforward. So there is no chance of passivity. There is no chance of producing an atmosphere of illusion or atmosphere of suggestiveness. Whatever you want to suggest, you must suggest it directly, so that it directly catch the attention of your examiners. Now come to the term that I have already mentioned several times, and I have also called it theft. That is plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? I have defined it for your sake. It can be unknowingly committed by students. So you can, out of your ignorance, commit this crime of plagiarism. Although plagiarism can be unknowingly committed, there are quite a few steps that can be taken in order to avoid plagiarizing. When quoting another author's work, place quotation marks around the words or sentence that you take from that work, and use a footnote, endnote, or inline citation to give credit to the original source. So while you are quoting from a particular source, you have to mention the source in your research paper. If you do not mention the source, or if you do not give credit to the author, then that is plagiarism. And how can you avoid this? You can avoid this by citing the source, or by using footnote or endnote or inline citation. And how will you cite the source? That very instruction is given by MLA, that is Modern Language Association. In the handbook of MLA, you will find this particular way of citing or citation. Merely changing a few words is not the same as true summarizing and use of such a minorly modified passage is still considered plagiarism unless a citation gives credit to the source. So one thing that is clear from this particular text is that you have to give credit to the author. You have every sort of liberty to quote from different sources, but you must do that with acknowledgement. You must do that with declaring your credit for that very particular writer. Otherwise, you will be charged with this crime, that is plagiarism. So whenever you quote from a particular source, or you paraphrase a particular excerpt, or you paraphrase a particular passage, even then, if you paraphrase or if you use the paraphrase of a particular text, you have to mention the name of the author and the name of the text from which you have borrowed this particular part of your text, of your term paper. And you should also mention the page number of that particular text. Or if you borrow it from a particular website, then you have to mention the address of that website and the time and date, on particular date on which you had an access into that particular website. Okay, but if you do not declare your credit or debt to that particular website or particular author, then you will be charged with plagiarism. And then you will have the chance of being rejected. Your term paper may have the chance of being rejected by your examiner. You will not be able to score satisfactorily. Then the steps to be followed for preparing a term paper. So what steps should you follow to prepare a term paper? or how can you develop a term paper? It's a very important instruction. You have to proceed. The steps that you have to follow for preparing a term paper are: number one, at first you have to select your topic. This is number one. Number two, research your topic thoroughly. At first you have to select your topic. For example, reading Things Fall Apart Eco-Critically. For example, it's your topic. Reading Things Fall Apart Eco-Critically. And I suggest you that your topic must be original. If your topic is like this, that Okonko is a tragic hero, or if your topic is like this, that Hamlet is a tragic hero, I think these topics are not good topics at all, because these are very common topics and lots of works are done on these particular topics. Suppose you have decided to work on Shakespeare's The Tempest. And if you approach this text from colonial perspective, I think it's an old approach, because The Tempest is a colonial text and thousands of works are done on this particular topic. But if you approach this text, The Tempest, from new historicist perspective or from postmodernist perspective or from Marxist perspective, then I think that would be a new approach. Okay. And you have ample scope to research. So at first, select your topic very carefully. Topic may be selected by your teacher, or you may select your own topic. And for selecting a topic, you have to decide your area of study at first. Whether you will, or you are interested in working on Shakespeare, or whether you are interested in working on Chaucer, or working on Dylan Thomas, or working on Arundhati Roy. At first, you have to select the area of your study. Then start reading your area extensively. And while you will go on with your extensive study, that will help you find out a new topic. So at first you have to select your topic. And after selecting your topic, you will have some questions in your mind regarding your topic. If I call Hamlet an absurd drama, suppose Hamlet is an absurd drama. If I call Hamlet an absurd drama, then what is an absurd drama? What is absurdity? For what particular qualities we can call a drama an absurd drama? So these are the questions that will crowd in your mind. So with those questions in your mind, you have to run with your research work. So for that reason, I have written here, research your topic thoroughly. Then prepare your term paper outline. You have to prepare an outline. That is, how will you develop your ideas in your term paper? At first, you will prepare an introduction. In introduction, you should have a research question. You should have a thesis statement. You will have some questions in your mind that you will produce in your introduction. Then in your body of term paper or research paper, you have to answer to the questions that you have thrown in introduction. And you give arguments, you have to give ideas, you have to produce interpretations sufficiently and satisfy those questions or answer those questions. Okay, and last of all, in conclusion, you have to prove that the topic that you started writing or the questions that you offered in your introduction are sufficiently or satisfactorily answered. That is called conclusion. So in conclusion, you have to prove that you have sufficiently answered the questions that you produced in your introduction. And another important thing that you must follow while writing the conclusion. In conclusion of your research paper, you should produce some space for the future researchers so that the future researchers may carry on your research from the place where you stop. So you have to produce that space. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind while writing a research paper or term paper. Then writing a proposal. Suppose you want to work on the tempest, or suppose you want to work on the God of small things. And you have selected a topic. Then produce a proposal. In your proposal, you have to produce a synopsis of your topic, of your field of research, and that very proposal is to be given to your supervisor. The supervisor will examine it. The other people may cross-examine it. And then if the supervisor is convinced that this very topic has ample scope to be developed, then he will tell you to work, or to continue, or to start your work, or to go on with your work. So proposal is very important. Your proposal will convince your examiner whether you can run with this topic or not. Then you have to write your paper. Then prepare your cover page and edit and proofread the final copy. After writing a research paper, you have to think on it, and think on it, and think on it. Suppose you have written a term paper within a short period of time, sorry, and submit it to your supervisor. That may beguile you, or that may prove that you have lots of cavities, you have lots of drawbacks in your research paper, or weaknesses in your research paper. For that reason, when you have finished writing your research paper, you have to read it, you have to reread it. That will help you discover the drawbacks, the shortcomings, the weaknesses of your term paper. And then you will have the time, or you will have chances to correct those places. So editing is very important. And it is said about research work that it is just like wine. It is just like wine. So if you preserve wine for a longer period of time, that very wine will be stronger. The longer you will preserve it, the stronger it will grow. Okay, so research work is just like a wine. If a wine is fermented for a longer period of time, then it becomes very strong. It becomes very costly. So your research work should be or should have sufficient time for its strength. You have to write it, and you have to read it and reread it and rewrite it. Then in course of time it will be strong and original and authentic research paper. So writing a term paper requires your industry, it requires your patience, it requires a lot of labor, it requires a lot of time. You have to dedicate your time, you have to dedicate your patience, you have to dedicate your labor, and if you can dedicate all these things 100%, you must attain your success. Unless and until you are dedicated, your research paper must suffer. Remember this. Okay. Now I have given here the format of a term paper. How will you design your term paper? At first, you must prepare the title page. In the title page, you will have the title of your term paper. Then you will have your name on the title page and the name of your supervisor. Then in the next step, create a page separate from the rest of the paper, which includes the title of the paper, your name, the course name, the name of the instructor or supervisor, and the date. This is the page next to the title page. Then acknowledgement. You should write an acknowledgement. You have to acknowledge your debt to different authors from whose writings you have borrowed your ideas. So you have to declare your debt, or you have to write your acknowledgement. Then in the next page, topic. In the topic, state your topic or describe your subject. Then rationale. Explain why you chose to research this topic. It is just like an abstract of your term paper. In abstract, you have to explain why you have chosen that very particular topic or that very particular field, and why have you chosen it, and how you have found interest in it, and how you have collected materials in it, and what questions you have produced in this research paper, and how you answer to those questions. All these things must come to this particular section. Okay. Then additional information. Additional information. Add any other relevant introductory information. Then table of table of contents. That is, you have to give the table of contents. You must divide your term paper into different chapters, and each chapter should have a title, individual title. So in the table of contents, you have to mention the title of the chapters and the page number. That is called table of contents. And then purpose or statement or abstract. And then present the questions that your paper will answer and a brief overview of the paper itself. Then literature review. Explain your research methodologies. Research methodologies means the way in which you develop your research paper or you develop your research. If your research is qualitative, then you have to read books, you have to visit libraries, you have to collect materials from your extensive academic reading. And if your research is quantitative, if your research is not qualitative, if it is quantitative, then you have to go to the field. There you must go on with survey, collect data, and incorporate those data into your research paper. Actually, your type of research, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, will decide your research methodology. And you have to explain your research methodology in your research paper or term paper. And then results. That is, what findings have you made in your research? And last of all, make your conclusions or closing statements. Determine whether or not your hypothesis was true or false. Whatever you say is to be proved. You can say that Shakespeare is anti-romantic. All right, but you have to prove it. Or you can say that Shakespeare is romantic. All right, you have to prove it. So whatever you say, you must prove it with arguments, with sufficient interpretation. That is called research paper. A research paper gives intensive answer to the questions which usually visit the readers. Suppose you have called Chinua Achebe a romantic writer. So that very saying or statement may make me question, how is he a romantic writer? It's my question. So it's now your responsibility to satisfy my question. You have to answer to my question. That is the task of a researcher. A researcher is not a prophet. He does not make any prophecy. He proves. Whatever he says, he proves. He does not leave any hypothesis for the readers. He just proves what he says. That is the task of a researcher. Then recommendations, and offer your views and suggestions for future research on the chosen topic. That is, you have to throw some views and suggestions for future research on the chosen topic. That is, your research will open a new horizon for the successive researchers. The successive researchers will use your research work as a secondary source. And then last of all, reference list. And we call it bibliography. You have to produce a bibliography. And this bibliography requires a special format. And for format, you can go to MLA, that is Modern Language Association, has provided the researchers with a handbook. And you can collect this handbook, or in our seminar library, you will find this handbook. You can use our seminar library well. Anyway, list all of your sources used in research and in the text. Remember to list in alphabetical order. So you have to arrange the names of your authors and their texts alphabetically. Suppose Achebe, Chinua Achebe. So A, the name starts with A. So this name will come first. Okay. Suppose Shakespeare. So Shakespeare, this very name starts with S, so it will go next to R. After R, S will come. Okay, so in this way, alphabetically, the names of the authors should be ordered or arranged in your bibliography. Now, what things are to be considered in research methodology? What is research methodology? I have already told you. Now, what things are to be considered seriously in research methodology? In research methodology, you have to consider the type of research you did, whether your research is qualitative or quantitative. If you continue your research work sitting in a library or visiting libraries, then it is a qualitative work. But if you go to the field and run survey there and collect data, on the basis of data, if you prepare your term paper, then we call it quantitative research work. So if it is qualitative, your approach will be different from if your research is quantitative. So you have to clarify it at the beginning or at the inception of your term paper. Then how you collect your data? If it is quantitative, you have to collect it from the field. Then how you analyzed your data? Data analysis requires some methods or procedures. So what procedures or what methods have you followed while analyzing your data? You have to mention. You have to clarify all these things at the very inception of your term paper. Then any tools or materials you used in the research paper. If you used public library, or if you used Asiatic Society's library, or the library of our seminar of Dhaka City College, then you have to mention all these things for the authenticity of your work. Then your rationale for choosing these methods. And methodology section written in the past tense. Methodology section should be written in past tense. Because methodology section says that you have completed your work, you have completed all your ventures. Now you are presenting what you have already got. For that reason, methodology section should be written in past tense. Now, the citing. How will you cite, or how will you mention the sources, or how will you produce the bibliography? I have already told you that according to AMLA 8th edition, the citation requires some particular procedures. The list of citations should be the very last page of a research project or essay. That is, bibliography will appear at the end of our research paper. Then the top page should include the running head and the final page number. That is, you have to put page number, and at the head of the page, every page, you must mention your name in your left-hand side and the topic in your right-hand side. Then all entries should be placed in alphabetical order by the first item in the AMLA format citation. The entire page should be double-spaced. You have to write in double-spaced lines. Okay. You will find this option in your computer. Space. So your text should be incorporated in double space. And how will you produce the bibliography? The author's last name, author's first name. That is, now look at this example. Suppose Amitabh Ghosh, this is the name of the author. Amitabh Ghosh. The last name will come first, Ghosh. then you have to put a comma. Then the first name. So last name will come first, and the first name will go last. Then the text, the name of the text, and it must be italicized. You have to italicize the name of the text. But if it is an essay or if it is an article, then it must not be italicized. You have to put quotation marks on both the sides. Then you must mention the name of the place of publication. This book was published from New Delhi, so New Delhi I have written here. And who has published it? Oxford University Press. This publisher has published it. And in what particular year was it published? It was published in 1980. Actually, this is an example of citation. How will you cite a text